Director of Communications at the Asheville Chamber. I'm here with Clark Duncan, who is our Senior Vice President for Economic Development, and one of our newest staff members, Ryan Regan, who's Director of Business Development. We wanted to sit down today and talk a little bit about this expo they just got back from and hear a little bit about it. So, Ryan, can you tell us a little bit about where you were this week and what you learned?
Yeah, so Clark and I just got back from a trip to Atlanta where we were at the HAI-HELI Expo, the Helicopter Association International Expo. This is the largest helicopter association expo in the world. There are several hundred exhibitors at the Georgia World Congress Center, tens of thousands of visitors over about 3 days. And our interest there was to represent the Asheville metro area in partnership with our partners at the EDP&C, the Economic Development Partnership of North Carolina, to share the story of Asheville and try and recruit some new businesses to the area. We didn't go in willy-nilly, we went in with a strategy, working with a third party over the past couple months to set up some qualified meetings with companies that met certain parameters that we had based on revenue stream, whether they're in growth mode, how many employees they have. And Clark and I had about a dozen or so good meetings throughout the week. This is an event that had some of the biggest players in aviation and the helicopter space in the world, so the likes of Boeing, Airbus, Sikorsky, Leonardo helicopters, Bell helicopter. We had a great time. It was our first time at the event, and we feel like our meetings proved to be fruitful, and we will likely attend next year as well.
Great. So Clark, what's appealing about this industry for our community?
Aerospace is important to our community in a number of ways. I don't think most recognize how large the industry already is here. Here at the Chamber, we recognize obviously a name like GE Aviation that has invested over $250 million in the facility in the last few years. But you also have legacy employers like Kierfot that have avionics and navigation and guidance systems, and they're a major industry leader in aerospace. Mills Manufacturing that's been in the business of parachutes for the public sector for decades and decades. Temperature instrument makers like Palmer Wall out in Woodfin. So we have these number of really well-known players in the aerospace industry here, and that's a great sector of workforce that we can leverage and continue to grow. The other really interesting factor that sort of keeps us really focused on growing our aerospace sector is the growth of the Asheville Regional Airport. So anyone that has traveled for the last 2-3 years has seen all the construction at the airfield, and as a result of the expansion of the taxiway and the addition of the new runway, we've got about 100 acres of pad-ready taxiway access sites to attract quality economic development. And those are really unusual sites in Western North Carolina, right? So we see those sites as particularly high value in attracting a great job creator to the airport and to Buncombe County.
So what kind of opportunities might come out of the kind of conversations you had over the last week?
The companies we met with really ran the gamut from, really high-tech machining organizations to simulation or avionics makers, or technology or process engineering firms. And I think all of those are the kind of jobs that we are really intentionally targeting with our 5x5 plan that bring a higher wage and a higher education need to Buncombe County.
So when we talk, one of the reasons we want to sit down and talk about what you guys have been doing over the last week is that to help our members and community understand a little bit about behind the scenes what's happening in economic development and what that represents for our community. So, what kind of opportunities exist what would that mean to the rest of the community if we were to land another project like this?
So economic development is really focused on not just growing tax base, but growing meaningful career opportunities for all residents of Buncombe County. The value of expanding a local manufacturer or attracting a complementary manufacturer really is all about bringing more of those career ladder opportunities, not just for those of us that are already here, but for our fast growing population, but also for our next generation of kids, right? I've got a 16-year-old that hope one day might want to find his way and make his career here in Western North Carolina.
So I know that the expo is the largest helicopter exhibition in the world and known for innovation. Did you see anything really cool?
Oh boy, did we ever. So we saw essentially I'm not sure how we would describe it. It's a quadcopter that eventually is going to be used for commercial purposes. So if you kind of think of what Uber does currently at ground level, this would be an Uber but in the air. I assume they're targeting people of a certain wealth level that may not include myself, but it was still pretty cool to see that technology up close and personal.
It was like the Batcopter.
Yeah, it was totally space age, very fascinating stuff. We got to have a ride in it, which was like 20 seconds, you go in and then you come out. But yeah, it was pretty fascinating to kind of learn about those new technologies that we would have otherwise never been familiar with. There's a lot going on with drones, bringing drones to commercial space, and that was a topic of conversation throughout the week as well. So in addition to actively recruiting companies at these trade shows, it's nice to just kind of hear the latest and greatest trends that are happening in this industry.
Ryan makes a great point, is that part of what we try to do with our economic development strategy is target high growth industries. So these outings are always really educational for us to learn about industries that are in decline and industries that are on the rise. And aerospace and aviation is attracting a ton of private investment right now. There's so much innovation in the space and a ton of public investment. And so we were like kids in a candy store, really kind of just learning a lot about the industry, but it's got a really bright future. And so if we're going to be intentionally recruiting or expanding local industry, we want to spend our time on industries that are going to be on the rise and that are seeing continued investment and really a high-tech, high-quality job creator.
Yeah, not only for what's going on right now in Buncombe County, but for that long-term future.
10 and 20 and 50 years down the road, yeah.
Great. Anything else you want to share about the expo?
Just real quick, it's always fascinating to Clark and I how familiar other people are about Asheville, especially folks who are, maybe live overseas. And this trade show skews to a lot of the companies that are involved in the space or international companies. It was fascinating to meet with these people who still had some kind of level of familiarity with Asheville. A couple had been to the Biltmore House. A guy had a wedding that he went to. One guy was a rock climber, so he was familiar with Asheville. So it really does show kind of the international appeal of our community for people who live all over the world.
Right, and these were Italian companies, French companies, Spanish companies, an Israeli project we met with.
Yep.
And so it's kind of fun to be part of a community like Asheville whose reputation is larger than we are.
Great.